To the world, Evander was a famous man. People called him a legend. But inside, he felt empty. It had been 5 long years. 5 years since Leora disappeared. She hadn't sent a text. She hadn't written a letter. She hadn't called. She was just gone. At first, Evander was angry at the silence. Now he just felt numb. His hands gripped the edge of his big, shiny desk. He wasn't upset about another business deal that failed. He was upset because today was the exact day, 5 years ago, that Leora left. "Hello, my lovely family," Evander said softly to himself. "Before this story begins, I need your help. This is a story about losing love and finding it again in the most surprising way. It's real. It's raw. I made it simple so you can feel every part of it. Please like this story, leave a comment, and share it with someone who believes in second chances. That way more people know this story matters." Now, let's begin. No extra fluff, just the heart of it. Leora didn't take much when she left, just a small suitcase. She didn't scream or cry. She didn't beg. She just slipped her wedding ring onto a velvet cloth like she was leaving a party early, and then she never came back. Evander replayed their last night in his head hundreds of times, maybe even more. He couldn't even remember what they argued about. A work call? A canceled date? A mean comment? Probably all of it. All he knew was he didn't say, "Don't go." He thought she'd come back like before, but Leora never left unless she truly meant it. And this time, she meant it. He tried everything to find her. Private detectives, GPS tracking, credit card records, searching social media, but Leora was gone. Completely gone. And the cruelest part, Evander didn't even know she was pregnant. "Mr. Walker." The intercom crackled with the voice of his assistant, Anya. Her tone was soft and nervous. "There's something you need to see." "Now's not a good time," Evander said. "It's about her." He froze. "Anya?" "A photo. A Boston blogger posted it after covering our charity gala. You won't believe this." She sent him the picture. Evander clicked it. The photo grew large on his computer screen. His heart stopped. In the background of the photo, almost hidden behind smiling politicians, was a woman holding a child. She wore jeans and a simple top. Her hair was shorter now. She looked a little different, her body fuller, her style simpler, but Evander would never forget that face. Leora, and in her arms, a little girl. 4 years old, maybe 5. The girl had messy chocolate curls, and her eyes, bright blue, wide, curious, were his. Evander's hand shook as he zoomed in on her face. The tiny nose, the small chin with a little tilt. He collapsed into his chair. How could Leora hide this? His child. Breathing, laughing, growing up without him. "Anya," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Yes, sir? Book the jet. I need to be in Boston tonight." Evander didn't pack. He didn't tell his board of directors. He didn't stop to think. The private jet lifted off at sunset, cutting through golden clouds. Evander's heart pounded so hard it hurt. He had imagined Leora so many times over the years. Maybe she was living in Paris or Rio or married to someone else, but never with a child, his child. What kind of man had he been? No. He couldn't think about that now. This was about Cora. He had to see her, hold her, smell her hair, hear her laugh. He had to be her dad. Even if Leora slammed the door in his face, he had to try. The limo stopped in front of a small, colorful community center in Roxbury. It felt like a different world compared to his tall glass buildings. Children's laughter floated out from inside, and there she was, Leora. She stood by the door, barefoot, a toddler on her hip. She had a paper towel in one hand, wiping paint off her cheek. She hadn't seen him yet. Evander stepped out of the car. The driver offered him an umbrella, but Evander waved it away. He wanted to see her, really see her. Without guards, without tinted windows, without fancy things. Leora finally looked up. Their eyes met. She froze. The little girl tugged on her sleeve. "Mommy, look! That's the man from the news." Leora went pale. Evander took one step forward. Just one. And his world shifted completely. He wasn't here for a deal. He wasn't here to win. He was here to beg. Inside the center, Leora and Cora sat at a paint-covered table. The room glowed with soft orange sunlight. Leora dipped her brush into bright orange paint and guided her daughter's hand. Like this, Mommy? Cora asked, her little brow furrowed in concentration. Almost, baby, Leora said with a smile. She wiped a smudge off Cora's cheek. Hold your wrist like this, like a feather. The classroom was empty now. Just them. Cora twirled around, wearing a paper crown and mismatched socks. Look, ballerina hands. Leora laughed. A real laugh. A happy laugh. You're perfect, she whispered. This was peace. It wasn't fancy apartments or expensive clothes. It was sidewalk chalk drawings, peanut butter stains, and sweet kisses at bedtime. Leora cleaned the brushes and wiped down the easel. She didn't sell art in galleries anymore. She didn't care. Here her canvas was cereal boxes and newspaper. Her audience was giggling kids. Her applause was little hands clapping. Leora watched Cora color hearts on scrap paper. She studied her face closely. The wide forehead, the big blue eyes, that look of stubborn curiosity. Cora looked exactly like Evander. That fact used to scare her. Now it still did. Leora hadn't left Evander because he cheated. There was no other woman, no big betrayal. It was his absence. He had been so busy climbing higher and higher, building his empire, that he forgot who he was stepping on. He forgot her. She became invisible, a shadow in their own home. She cried over cold dinners, empty beds, broken promises, so she left before it crushed her completely. She hadn't known she was pregnant then. If she had, maybe she would have stayed. Or maybe that made leaving even more important. She didn't want her child to grow up feeling invisible too. Cora didn't know her father. Leora planned to keep it that way. There were no pictures of Evander in their home, no TV news about him, just books, art supplies, and music. Still, Cora had questions. Why don't I have a daddy like my friends, she'd ask. Leora always said the same thing. Some daddies go on special adventures. Some families are just different. It worked. Until now, Leora tossed Cora an apple from her bag. You think my hair will always be curly? Cora asked, taking a bite. Leora kissed her forehead. I hope so. Even when you're a big girl, you'll always be my little girl. The next morning was too quiet. Leora stood in the hallway with her travel mug. She waited for the usual sound of sneakers, backpacks, and laughter. Nothing. Then she heard slow, heavy footsteps. Fancy shoes. Leora turned her head. Her mug nearly slipped from her hands. A black limousine was parked outside. Her stomach knotted. No, it couldn't be. Mommy, look, Cora whispered. That car looks like the ones in princess movies. Leora forced a smile. It does. The car door opened. Time stopped. Evander Walker stepped out. He wore a black suit, no tie, his collar loose. His hair was neat but soft, like he hadn't slept. Leora's knees went weak. Cora whispered, Mommy, that's the man from the news. Leora didn't answer. Evander didn't speak either. His eyes locked on Cora, the same eyes she had, and his face broke. Leora shifted, blocking Cora with her body. Protective, scared. Stay here, she whispered to Cora. Leora walked forward. Her voice was sharp. You shouldn't be here. I saw the photo, Evander said softly. Leora's eyes narrowed. I'm not here to cause problems, Evander said. I had to know. Is she... He swallowed. Is she mine? Leora didn't blink. Yes, Evander staggered back. The word hit him like a punch. Tears filled his eyes. I didn't know, he whispered. That's on you, Leora said firmly. You didn't notice a lot back then. I was blind, Evander admitted. I'll own that. You said you wanted to know. Now you do. She's yours. Congratulations, you can go. Evander flinched like she had slapped him. I don't want to ruin your life, he said gently. I just want to understand. Why didn't you tell me? Leora's voice was sharp. You weren't the kind of man who would make room for a child, Evander. That's not fair, Evander said, isn't it? You couldn't make time for dinner, or for sleep, or for me. How would you make time to be a dad? He had no answer. He'd told himself he built his empire for her, for their future. But now he realized empires don't hold you at night. People do. You left, Evander said, not angry but sad. You just disappeared. You didn't stop to ask why, Leora said. You just went on with your life. I hired people to find you, Evander whispered. Did you ever think I didn't want to be found? He didn't answer. Her name is Cora, Leora said finally. She folded her arms. She loves rainbows, hates carrots, and draws everything she dreams. Evander felt his throat tighten. Cora, she's so smart, creative, and very stubborn, he said softly. I wonder where she got that from, Leora said in a cold voice. A sad smile flickered across Evander's face. Leora didn't smile back. She's happy, Leora said firmly. She doesn't even know she was missing anything. But she was, Evander whispered. She was missing me. Leora's eyes narrowed. Don't you dare say that, she snapped. I'm not trying to take credit for something I didn't earn, Evander said quickly. But I'm here now and I want to try. Try to do what? Be a weekend dad? Fly in when your schedule is clear? She shot back. No, Evander said, shaking his head. I want to be present. I want to rebuild. Not just with her, with you too. Leora's jaw tightened. Don't, she said sharply. Don't say that like it's simple. I'm not saying it's simple, Evander replied. I'm saying it's worth it. Suddenly, the door creaked. Cora peeked her head out. I finished my painting, she called. Want to see? Evander blinked back tears. Yes, please, he said warmly. Leora didn't stop their daughter this time. Cora skipped out happily, holding up a page filled with bright marker colors. On it was a picture of a stick figure family, a woman with curly hair, a man with blue eyes, and a little girl in a rainbow dress. That's me, Cora said, pointing to the girl. And that's you, Mommy? And that's... She paused, looking at Evander. Is that me? Evander asked gently. Cora tilted her head. Are you the man from my dreams? Leora's breath caught. Evander nodded slowly. I might be, he said softly. Cora grinned like she had solved a big puzzle. Cool. Leora said nothing. She had been afraid of this day for so long. But now it was happening without her permission. Her strong walls were crumbling because of a little girl's smile and a man's broken heart. Cora reached out and took Evander's hand. Her small hand looked tiny in his. Leora's heart ached. She didn't want to feel these emotions. She didn't want to remember what it felt like when that same hand used to hold hers. She didn't want to remember his voice whispering her name in the dark. But most of all, she didn't want to hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope made you soft, and being soft could get you hurt. I don't want to take her away from you, Evander said softly when Cora ran back inside. Leora raised her eyebrows. I know you think I'm here to throw money around, to get lawyers and take her, Evander said. Wouldn't be the first time you bulldozed your way through something, she muttered. But I'm not that man anymore, Evander said gently. And I'm not here to fight. I'm here to ask. He stepped closer, his voice trembling. Please, Leora, let me know her. Leora didn't answer. I'm not asking for joint custody or a place at your table. Not yet. I'm just asking for time. Time to fix what I broke. No, Evander said, correcting himself. Not to fix, to be what I should have been from the start. Leora looked away. Her heart was racing, and she hated that. She hated that Cora liked him. She hated that Evander still knew how to speak in that soft voice. The one that wasn't bossy or proud, but real. I need time to think, Leora finally said. Evander nodded. I'll wait, however long it takes. That night, the stars above Boston twinkled softly. They weren't as bright as the New York skyline Evander was used to, but tonight they were the only lights Leora needed. She sat on the old wooden porch steps, barefoot, holding a chipped mug of tea. The sound of late summer bugs filled the quiet night. The front door creaked open behind her. Leora didn't turn around, but she knew it was Evander. He stepped out carefully, moving slower than usual, unsure if he was welcome. He wasn't really, but she didn't send him away either. He sat beside her, not too close, not too far, close enough to hear her breathing. She's asleep? He asked softly. Leora nodded. Did she say anything about me? Evander asked. Leora sighed. She said you had superhero shoulders. Evander let out a soft laugh. She's generous. She's 4, Leora said. That's her superpower. They both chuckled. For a moment, it felt like the old days before ambition and success had destroyed their love. You left, Evander finally said. Leora turned her head slowly. You act like I vanished into thin air. You did, he whispered. No, she said sharply. I disappeared from your life, not the world. You just weren't looking in the right places. I looked everywhere, Evander argued. Then you didn't look here, Leora said firmly. Evander clenched his jaw. You were married to your ambition, Evander, Leora said softly. You cared about deals and money. I was just the person you came home to. That's not true, Evander said quickly, but his voice was weak. She looked at him sadly. I used to wait up for you. I'd make dinner, set the table, pour wine. You'd show up late or not at all, and when you did, you'd kiss my cheek like it was a chore. Evander lowered his eyes. I was building something, he whispered, and while you were building, Leora said quietly, you destroyed what we already had. Evander flinched. Leora's voice softened. I never hated you, Evander. I just got tired of loving someone who couldn't love me back. He turned to her, eyes full of pain. I did love you. You loved what I gave you, Leora said. You didn't see me. Evander dropped his head into his hands. I didn't know how to love without building, without fixing, he admitted. Leora swallowed. That's the thing. I didn't need to be fixed. I needed to be held. I needed presence, not presence. I sold the penthouse, Evander said suddenly. Leora blinked. What? I couldn't live there anymore. Every room reminded me of what I lost, so I sold it. I used the money to start a foundation. A foundation? For what? For single mothers and little girls in art programs, in your name. Leora's heart stopped. You did that for me? For you, Evander said, voice shaking. For the woman I hurt, for the little girl I never got to meet. I'm sorry, Evander said. This time his voice was real. It wasn't like a business apology. It came from his heart. Leora closed her eyes. Tears stung her eyes. I don't know how to let you back in, she whispered. I spent so long learning how to breathe without you. I'm not asking to come back all at once, Evander said. I'm asking for a chance to stand at your door. There was a long silence. Then Evander whispered, I never stopped loving you. He reached for her hand. Leora didn't pull away. Instead, she looked into his eyes. There was no anger in her gaze now, only memories of their first kiss, their arguments, their laughter, and all their pain. Slowly, she leaned in. So did he. When their lips met, it wasn't perfect or like a movie. It was real, messy, tear-streaked, and full of emotions. Leora pulled back slightly. I'm still angry, she whispered. You're allowed to be, Evander said softly. I don't trust you. I'll earn it every day, Evander promised. Leora stood up, wiping her eyes. This doesn't change anything. It doesn't mean I forgive you. It doesn't mean I'm letting you into her life. I understand, Evander said. She turned to go inside, then stopped. But it means I remembered what your kiss tastes like. Evander swallowed hard, and it still makes me feel like I'm falling. Leora went inside and the porch door clicked shut. Evander stood in the hallway, unsure if he should leave. But he couldn't. Not now. Leora leaned against the wall, breathing heavily, looking at him. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. He stepped closer. She didn't move. Then he kissed her again, this time like a man starving for love, and she kissed him back like a woman finally allowing herself to feel again. Years of pain, anger, regret, and love poured into that kiss. He held her hips and pressed his forehead against hers. Tell me you missed me, he whispered. I hate how much I did, she gasped. The hallway became a place where they confessed without words. Evander's jacket fell to the floor. Leora's shirt slipped off. His lips moved along her neck softly, asking for permission with every kiss. She didn't speak. She just pulled him closer. He lifted her into his arms. She wrapped her legs around him. You never left my dreams, he groaned. You haunted mine, she whispered. He carried her to the kitchen. She tore open his shirt, buttons falling like tiny raindrops. On the counter, Evander paused. His eyes stopped at the scar on her lower stomach. He bent down and kissed it gently. For you, he whispered. For everything you went through alone. Leora closed her eyes. No one had ever touched her scar like that. Not like it mattered. But it did. He looked up, and for the first time in 5 years, Leora saw the man she had fallen in love with. They kissed again, harder this time. Their hands tangled in each other's hair. They clung to one another like they couldn't let go. Later, the house was quiet. Evander lay shirtless on the couch. Leora sat on the floor, wearing his shirt, her head resting on his knee. "You don't just get to walk back in," she whispered. "I know," Evander said softly. "You can't rewrite history with this." "I don't want to rewrite anything," he replied. "I want to build something new." Leora turned to look at him. New still needs trust. "I'll earn it," Evander promised, "even if it takes forever." Leora hugged her knees. "I didn't let anyone else in, Evander, not all these years." "Why?" he asked quietly. "Because none of them were you." "I hated you," she said softly. "I hated myself. And yet here we are," he whispered. He reached for her hand. "Do you regret it? Regret loving you?" "No." "Regret tonight?" "Also no." He smiled. "This doesn't mean anything changes yet," she said firmly. "It means we're not pretending anymore," he replied. She didn't argue. He was right. That night, Evander slept on the couch. Leora gave him a blanket. But the next morning, when sunlight streamed through the windows and Cora called for breakfast, she found Evander in the kitchen. He was shirtless and burning pancakes. Badly. Leora couldn't help but smile. "Please tell me you're not feeding her that." "She says she likes the crispy parts," Evander said, laughing. Cora came running in wearing her pajamas. "I like it when he flips them and drops one." Leora stood in the doorway and watched them laugh. For the first time since Evander came back into her life, she didn't feel scared. The kitchen was a mess. Flour covered the counter like snow. A spatula was sticking out of a peanut butter jar. Pancake batter dripped down the mixing bowl like a slow, sticky waterfall. And in the middle of it all stood Evander Walker, billionaire, businessman, powerful man, flipping pancakes in his socks. Cora clapped her hands. "That one almost landed on the pan," she said. "Almost," Leora said with her arms crossed. Evander gave her a sheepish grin. 70% success rate, he joked. Cora giggled and pointed at him. "You have syrup on your eyebrow." Evander wiped the wrong side of his face, which made her laugh harder. Leora stayed quiet, just watching him. There was something special about seeing him like this. Not in a suit, not in a big office, but barefoot and real. Later that morning, Evander sat on the floor with Cora in the living room. There were markers everywhere, and colorful drawings spread out like a rainbow sea. Castles, dinosaurs, rainbows, and people. One drawing had 3 figures, a girl in a yellow dress, a woman with short hair, and a tall man with blue eyes. Cora looked up at Evander and pointed. "That's you." "Me?" Evander blinked. "Yeah, I drew you before you got here." He swallowed hard. "Why did you draw me?" "I don't," Cora said with a shrug. "I just knew you were real." Leora stood in the hallway. She turned away, tears stinging her eyes. Kids didn't need proof to believe in magic. They just needed hope. After lunch, Cora brought Evander a small stuffed fox with one ear missing. "She's nervous," Cora whispered. Evander knelt down. "Why is she nervous? She thinks you'll leave." He blinked. "What's her name?" "Maple." "Maple?" Evander said seriously, holding the fox. "I promise I'm not going anywhere." Cora studied him carefully. "Really?" she asked. "Really? Then I can tell you a secret?" "Of course." Evander leaned in. "I think you're my daddy," Cora whispered. Evander froze. Leora, who was drying a plate at the sink, dropped it. It didn't break, but the sound was loud. Evander looked at Leora. Leora looked down at the floor. She took a deep breath, knelt beside Cora, and tucked a curl behind her ear. "Sweetheart," Leora said softly, "do you want to know the truth?" Cora nodded. Leora looked at Evander, then back at Cora. "This is Evander," she said gently. "And yes, he's your daddy." Cora didn't cry or gasp. She just tilted her head. "I already knew," she said. Evander blinked. "How?" She pointed to his eyes. "They look like mine." Then she hugged him tight. "I drew you with superhero muscles and a sad face," she whispered into his shoulder. "But you're not sad anymore." Evander held her close like he'd never let go. Leora turned away. She wasn't ready to watch her daughter heal the heart of the man who had once broken hers. That evening, Evander sat in the backyard watching Cora run around with a jar, chasing lightning bugs. Leora joined him, folding her arms. "She's a lot," Leora said. "She's everything," Evander replied. They sat quietly for a moment. "I don't know how to do this," Evander admitted. "Neither do I," Leora said softly. "But I want to, with her, with you. This isn't just about showing up, Evander. I know it's about being steady, kind, and listening. I can learn," Leora sighed. "Most men don't even try. Then let me be the one who does." Later that night, Leora tucked Cora into bed. "Mommy?" Cora whispered. "Yes, baby?" "Can he stay again?" Leora hesitated. "Please," Cora added. "He makes the house feel bigger." Leora kissed her forehead. "We'll see." In the hallway, Evander was waiting. "I heard her," he said softly. "She's just a kid. She's honest. And that scares you, doesn't it?" Leora looked into his eyes. "I've protected her from pain. And now you're afraid letting me in means letting pain in too," he said. She nodded. "I won't hurt her," Evander promised. "Not ever." Leora's eyes filled with tears. "Don't make promises you can't keep." "I won't," he said, "because I already broke too many." That night, Leora lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Moonlight fell softly across her room. The house was quiet. Cora was asleep down the hall, her soft snores barely audible. Leora didn't hear Evander walk up, but she felt him there, a change in the air, a quiet breath at her door. She turned her head. Their eyes met. No words, just an invitation. "Come in." He stepped inside and closed the door. He didn't touch her right away. He stood there, waiting. Leora sat up, motioned softly for him to come closer. Evander crossed the room, bare-chested, tired from a day that felt like a lifetime. He sat on the edge of her bed. "I'm not asking for forever," she whispered. "I'm not here with excuses," he replied softly, "just truth." He leaned in and kissed her gently. It wasn't wild or rushed, it was warm and tender. His hands moved slowly, as if tracing a map of her body. "I want to remember every part of you," Evander murmured. "Why? Because I never want to miss you again, not even in my dreams." Leora exhaled softly, her hand brushing his shoulder. Their lips met again and again, slow and steady. He didn't rush her. He undressed her like she was something precious, kissed her collarbone, her arms, her legs. When he was inside her, there was no gasp, no rush, just shared breath and quiet. Leora cried softly, not from sadness, but from release. From his steady hands, from the way he whispered her name like it was sacred, from how he didn't hurry. She felt more than a mother, more than someone who carried the weight of everything. She felt loved, seen, and wanted. Afterward, they lay side by side, fingers barely touching. Outside, birds chirped softly. Inside, hope bloomed quietly. Evander looked at her. "I wasn't sure if I was allowed to touch you like that," he said. Leora smiled faintly. "You didn't just touch my body, Evander." He waited. "You touched something I buried." Evander didn't answer. He just kissed her palm gently. The next morning, they dressed without speaking of labels. No, "Are we back together?" No, "What are we now?" Just peace. Cora burst into the room with mismatched socks and a wild story about a dragon and maple syrup. They both laughed. Leora looked at Evander and saw something she hadn't seen in years. Stillness. He wasn't running anymore. He was here. The next Saturday, Evander arrived at Leora's small house in a shiny black SUV. He wore a sweater and jeans, not a suit, but he still looked handsome. Cora peeked through the blinds. "Is he taking us somewhere fancy?" she asked. "Why do you think that?" Leora chuckled. "He smells like money," Cora giggled. Leora smiled. "He smells like aftershave and second chances." Evander walked up to the porch. "I want to show you something," he said. Leora hesitated, but Cora was already grabbing her coat. The drive was quiet but not awkward. Evander led them up a long driveway surrounded by trees. Ahead stood a beautiful house, not too flashy, just warm and welcoming, with big windows and colorful gardens. "You bought a house?" Leora asked. "I built a life," Evander said softly. "This is part of it. Inside, he carried Cora while Leora followed. He led them into a room with tall ceilings and soft lighting. Leora gasped. The walls were covered in paintings, bold and colorful. "These are all single mothers," Evander said quietly. "Women who came through the Foundation. They had nothing but talent. They just needed someone to believe in them." Leora's hand went to her chest. "You gave them this space?" "I gave them a start. They did the rest," Evander said. Then he pulled back a curtain. Leora froze. It was a mural, a little girl with curly hair, a woman with paint on her cheek, and a man kneeling with open arms. Leora recognized it. "It's Cora's drawing," Evander said. "I wanted the world to see it." Cora's eyes lit up. "That's my picture!" Leora turned to Evander, her eyes wide. "How did you?" "I had it scanned and gave it to one of the mothers. She turned it into this." Leora was speechless. Evander knelt down and pulled a small box from his coat pocket. "I'm not asking to fix the past," he said softly. "I'm not asking to erase what I broke. I just want to build something new. With you, with her, if you'll let me." Leora knelt too. "I never stopped loving you," she whispered. "And I never will," Evander said. That night, Cora fell asleep in a cozy nook shaped like a crescent moon. Leora and Evander stood watching her. "She fits here," Leora whispered. "So do you," Evander replied. "I don't want to rush things," Leora said. "I don't either," Evander said. "I just want to keep showing you." She nodded. He took her hand. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better, because it was real. The morning was soft and warm. The garden at Evander's estate was transformed, not by event planners, say, but by the women in his foundation. They planted daisies by hand. String lights hung from wooden beams. Paper cranes floated like blessings in the breeze. Leora stood barefoot on the stone path in a simple ivory dress. Evander waited at the end of the aisle in a white shirt, sleeves rolled up. Cora held a basket of rainbow petals. "Mommy, do I throw them one by one?" Cora whispered. "No, sweetheart, toss them like confetti." Leora smiled. "Good," Cora said proudly. "Because I made them rainbow," Evander laughed. "Of course you did." Soft guitar music began, played by one of the artists Evander had helped. There were no phones, no press, just a few women who had once been strangers and now felt like family. Leora took a deep breath and stepped forward. She and Evander didn't stand on a stage or in a fancy place. They stood face to face, holding hands, their hearts open. The lady who was marrying them wasn't a stranger. She was a kind woman who helped young moms after school. She asked if they had written their own wedding promises. Evander nodded and started to speak first. "I used to think love meant building big things, winning and earning," he said, pausing for a moment. "But then I met someone who showed me that love isn't something you win. It's something you take care of every day." He looked into Leora's eyes. "I didn't lose you 5 years ago. I lost the part of me that deserved you. And the man standing here today has been waiting a long time to finally come home." Leora's voice shook a little when she spoke. "I don't believe in perfect love anymore," she said softly, "but I do believe in choosing. And I choose you. Not because you became a new person, but because you remembered who you always could be." They weren't crying to look dramatic. They cried because their words were true. Little Cora walked up to them holding a small box with the rings inside. She handed it to Evander. "Don't drop it," she said seriously. Everyone laughed. Evander carefully placed the ring on Leora's finger. His hands didn't shake. They were steady and sure. Leora placed a ring on Evander's finger and whispered, "You're not the man I left behind." Evander smiled softly. "You're the reason I became this man." There was no big, fancy party after the wedding. Instead, they had a simple meal outside under strings of glowing fairy lights. Cora sat happily between them, her cheeks sticky from cake, her feet swinging under the chair. Someone put on slow, jazzy music. Evander stood and held his hand out to Leora. "Do you remember how to dance?" he asked. Leora raised an eyebrow. "Do you?" Evander smiled. "I remember how to follow." They kicked off their shoes and danced slowly in the grass, their foreheads touching. Cora giggled and ran around them, pretending to be a butterfly. There were no speeches, no cameras, no hashtags, just three people moving together as a family. Later, as the sun set, they took just one picture, one simple photo, no filters, no fancy edits. Evander, Leora, and Cora stood in front of a big mural, holding hands. Cora beamed brightly. The photographer, a young woman from Evander's foundation, carefully framed the shot. "Hold still," she said. But in truth, they weren't just holding still. They were holding on to healing, forgiveness, and love. That evening, as the sky turned golden, everyone gathered at a long wooden table in the yard. There were no caterers or expensive meals. Instead, the food was homemade by women who Evander's foundation had helped. There were lasagnas, fruit salads, cornbread, and pies wrapped in foil and love. Cora sat between Leora and Evander, swinging her legs. Her pretty dress was stained with frosting, but she didn't care. To her left sat a woman who used to live in a shelter. To her right was a young mother who got her first home thanks to Leora's grant program. No one was there because they had to be. They came because they cared. Evander stood up with a glass in his hand, not champagne, but lemonade with a slice of strawberry. Cora had added it for him. "Thank you," Evander said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you not just for being here, but for witnessing this moment." Everyone grew quiet. "For a long time, I thought being successful meant climbing high," Evander continued. He looked at Leora. "But now I know success is about who's still holding your hand when you stop running." He turned to Cora. "And who makes you want to slow down?" Cora giggled. "That's me," everyone laughed. Evander smiled. "I used to chase everything. Today, I'm choosing to stay." The music played again, soft and warm. Cora ran barefoot in the grass, twirling in her white dress like the sky itself was clapping for her. Leora sat on a blanket, her wedding dress tucked under her, eating half a slice of pie. Evander laid beside her, watching their daughter. "She's never danced like this before," Evander whispered. "She's never felt this safe before," Leora said, squeezing his hand. This wasn't a wedding a planner could design. It wasn't glamorous or perfect, but it was theirs. Later, Evander offered his hand to Leora again. She smiled, took it, and followed him under the lights. They swayed barefoot, slow and quiet. Cora ran up and wrapped her arms around their legs. "I want to dance too," she said. Evander crouched and lifted her up. "You already are," he whispered. Cora wrapped her arms around his neck and leaned on Leora's shoulder. The three of them swayed together like one heartbeat. No clapping, no flashes of cameras, just love, real, quiet, earned love. While Leora and Cora played with sparklers near the fountain, Evander sat beside an older woman who had lost her daughter years ago. "I never thought I'd live to see a day like this," she whispered. Evander smiled. "Me neither." "You're not the same man from the newspapers," she said softly. "No," Evander agreed. "That man was all noise. This one listens." She nodded. "Then don't stop." By the end of the night, Cora was fast asleep on a couch, clutching a cookie. Leora gently covered her with a blanket. Evander watched quietly from the doorway. "She looks so peaceful," he whispered. "She is," Leora said softly. "For the first time in her life, she doesn't feel like anything's missing." "Me?" Evander asked, his voice low. Leora just nodded. "And you?" he asked again. Leora turned to him with soft eyes. "I stopped waiting for you a long time ago, Evander," she said honestly. His chest tightened. "But tonight," Leora added, "I realized I wasn't waiting. I was preparing." They stepped onto the balcony. Below, the party was fading. Soft music and laughter floated in the night air. Evander wrapped his arms gently around Leora's waist. "I don't deserve this," he whispered. "No," Leora agreed. "You chose this. That's what makes it real." "Will we make it?" he asked softly. Leora leaned her head against his chest. "We already are." The next morning, sunlight filled the estate's private gallery. Leora walked in barefoot, wearing her robe, holding a cup of coffee. She stopped when she saw Evander crouched near the big mural, carefully screwing in a small metal plaque. "What are you doing?" she asked gently. Evander finished and stepped back. Leora knelt down to read the words on the plaque. Love, when given a second chance, doesn't just heal, it redefines everything. Dedicated to the girl who found her father before he found himself. Leora touched his shoulder. Do you really mean that? I live it, Evander replied, and in the kitchen, Cora was at the table, coloring, crayons scattered everywhere. Leora kissed her head. What are you drawing, little artist? It's a surprise, Cora said with a big smile. Evander leaned over. Can I see? She proudly showed him a picture of a big house with 3 stick figures. One was twirling, one was reading, one was holding pancakes. That's me, Cora said, pointing, and that's Mommy and you. Evander's throat tightened. Why am I holding pancakes? Because you make them wrong, Cora giggled. But I like them. They all laughed. She added a bright yellow sun with a smiling face. She's happy, Leora whispered. She's safe, Evander added. That evening, Leora and Cora took a nap. Evander sat alone in his office, holding an old journal he hadn't opened since the night Leora left. He flipped through the blank pages and started writing a letter to the man I used to be. You chased everything but the one thing that mattered. You thought love was a deal to make. You thought time was money. You thought you could pay for presents. You were wrong, but you learned. You learned to listen, to kneel, to see. And because of that, she came back. Not to the man you were, but to the man you became. He closed the journal and for the first time forgave himself. 3 months later, Evander opened a new wing of his foundation's gallery. Leora stood beside him, holding his hand, and Cora held both of theirs. There were news cameras, but Evander didn't give a speech. Instead, Cora walked to the front, handed one of her colorful drawings to the program director, and whispered, "Put this up." The whole room clapped. The drawing showed a sun shining over a happy home, with stick figures smiling underneath. This time, there was also a dog. A dog? Leora said, confused. Cora grinned. We're getting one. Daddy promised. Evander laughed. Guess I did. They all smiled. The moment was light and sweet, but it meant something big. They weren't just a family now. They were building a future together. Back at home, framed pictures filled their hallway. None were fancy, just real moments. Someone laughing mid-sentence, a paint-splattered apron, a burnt pancake flipped the wrong way. The last frame was the mural. Beneath it hung the same golden plaque. Cora walked by, running her fingers over the letters. She read slowly, "Love, when given a second chance, doesn't just heal." "What does redefine mean?" she asked Leora. Leora knelt beside her. "It means love can change everything, even mistakes." "Even mistakes?" Cora whispered. Leora kissed her forehead. "Especially mistakes." Evander walked over and scooped Cora into his arms. "Ready for bed? Can we sleep in the big bed tonight?" she asked. Leora raised an eyebrow, pretending to think. Evander laughed. "Just for tonight." They walked down the hallway together, 3 shadows moving in the warm light. A family finally whole. Not because they were perfect, but because they chose each other. Again and again. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that love doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful, and that it's never too late to say, "I see you now," please leave a comment. Second chances make love even stronger. Like this video so others can find this message. Subscribe to Fiction of Peace, where true love is celebrated and every broken heart gets a voice. Thank you, beautiful family. This story belongs to you too.